I do think hybrid publishing is more useful because you get a consistent, professional, polished product in a limited amount of time, and then you can immediately start using that.
Leaders Press is a USA Today and Wall Street Journal best-selling press with traditional distribution via Simon & Schuster. Thanks to their work, more than 500 entrepreneurs have been able to share their stories with the world, and 133 of their authors have become USA Today and Wall Street Journal best-selling authors in their own right. If you'd like to discover which type of book would best suit you, go to leaderspress.com/reveal. In this episode of the Leaders Get Published podcast, the Leaders Press team will reveal how you can get published.
I'm Alinka Rutkowska, the founder of Leaders Press. With me are my COOs, Grace O'Donnell and Deborah Brannon, and this is the Leaders Get Published podcast. In this episode, we'll break down how you can get published. Super exciting. So I've been published in 3 different ways. Self-published, that was my first book. Then it was translated into various languages and traditionally published by traditional publishing houses. And now we run Leaders Press, and this is hybrid publishing. So which one sounds the most interesting to you guys?
Well, I think hybrid publishing sounds exciting. Just, I don't know, there's something about the term hybrid publishing. You're doing a couple of different things, mixing it up and getting the best of both worlds.
Yeah, but you're biased because you work here.
Yeah, my sure. I don't know, the world's changing so fast, it's crazy. There's so many different ways. Like, I remember growing up when it was like very much like so gatekeep to the publishing world, and now it's not that way at all. So it's all the new stuff is kind of exciting. Yeah, get out of the old world. No, the old world is still really useful and valid, but maybe we should explain what hybrid and self-publishing and all those terms are, just in case people aren't sure. I don't know what you guys think.
We should start there.
Yes. So the traditional publishing used to be the main, almost only way it used to be done, because there were always some rebels that were self-publishing.
Yeah.
We can look them up. Yeah, they've always existed.
Well, that's how the whole industry started, right? Like back in the 17th century or whatever.
Yeah. They would just decide they're going to do it on their own, everything on their own. So the rebels out there. But other than the rebels, there was the traditional publishing, and you had to go through all the gatekeepers, which was, to me, very unattractive, because first you need to find an agent, okay? And then you need to prepare a proposal, and then you need to pitch this proposal to all these agents and see if any of these agents will take you on. And if they do, then the agents will pitch you to the publishing houses. And when a publishing house decides to take you on, they will give you an advance, and then they will tell you to change half of your manuscript, and they will decide what the cover will be and the pricing, and if they'll do any marketing or not. And you'll get an advance. And
was your self-published book, was that fiction or nonfiction? Because we mainly deal with nonfiction, so I'm just kind of curious, like if it's slightly different or.
Yeah, it's not fiction. It was nonfiction, but the process is the same for both. And so the agent will give you the traditional publisher will give you the advance, a small percentage of royalties, and then you're probably looking at about 2 years from the moment that you're picked up by an agent to the moment that your book is out. Wow. So that's why that has never been exciting to me.
You have to earn back your advance before you start earning royalties as well when you're traditionally published. So it's just hoop after hoop after hoop, and then you get to the end of the hoops and you've got this big wall that you got to get over.
Yeah, but it used to be the only way you could get into bookstores, for example.
It's true.
Yeah.
So what we're doing now with our distribution partnership with Simon & Schuster is we're able to get authors into bookstores without, the 2-year wait. Well, we do have a bit of a lead, increased lead time because we're part of the traditional distribution, but that's just for the paperback part. Deborah, you want to talk more about that, how that works?
Well, sure. So just with the traditional printing, of course, there's a lead time where you have to submit the complete and no longer changing files to your printer. And with the current industry standards, they're looking at like a minimum of 8 weeks just to do the printing. So, we call it 2 months minimum for that part of the process. And then there's all the shipping involved, so that we have to wait for the books to go from the printers to the distribution center, and then from the distribution center out to the bookstores. So that adds at least another 4 to 6 weeks. So with all of that in mind, it does take like 3 to 4 months just to go through the production process to get your paperback into bookstores. So with the
3 to 4 months to actually just getting it into stores. I mean,
Yeah.
like we've seen our authors just get so excited about like really holding the book and having their, friends, family, everyone come to see them in their bookstores, and I think it's worth it.
hopefully do some signings as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's definitely it.
So just like a specific note to 2021, just in the wake of the pandemic and the supply chain issues that many industries are having, this process has been stretched even a little more just because of like manpower shortages and getting the books onto the trucks, and then getting those trucks driven to where they're supposed to go, and getting everything distributed. So we have heard from printers that this process is taking even a little bit longer right now, just during the season. But typically 3 to 4 months is about the time that it takes from beginning production to having the books on the shelves or in the Amazon warehouse for the paperbacks.
And the earlier part of our kind of book process, it takes from usually about 9 months from just concept being in your head, being this kind of nebulous thing, into black and white, at least edited before it goes into the printing, which I think is brilliant. I love it because I always think of it like a pregnancy for our authors. They're creating this thing. It's a little bit stressful, but it's very exciting. And then they push something beautiful out into the world. So yeah.
Did we want to talk a little bit about self-publishing before we explain what hybrid publishing is fully?
Yeah. And I just wanted to say that, 9 months from idea, it's an idea. I'm going to write a book about, how I grew my business. That's 9 months just from idea to, book in bookstores, and we can get the book on the USA Today bestselling list, Wall Street Journal bestselling list. There are people who take 9 months to just write a first draft. There are people who take 9 years. Like we've worked with an entrepreneur who said they took them 10 years to write, and they, were never able to complete it. And then they finally started working with us, and less than a year it was out. So that's exciting.
Worth it.
Self-publishing. We were going to talk about self-publishing. I'll tell you, when I found out about self-publishing, and I found out in 2010, one of my colleagues at the time told me, there was this guy, his name is Tim Ferriss, and he published a book by himself without it going through a publisher. And I was like, what? You can do that? It was just so crazy to me and so liberating. I thought, I'm doing it. I don't want to, be asking any gatekeeper to accept my manuscript and, then wait and not have creative control, or, don't know if they're going to do any marketing or not.
Yes,
so I just jumped at it.
I cannot imagine that. You're very like, I'm going to get this done. I'm going to get it done before, I go to sleep before 2 hours time. So yeah, I think if anyone's listening who is similar, that self-publishing is pretty attractive.
It's very attractive.
Were you worried about producing a quality product?
I wanted it to be quality. I got some help, so I didn't do it all by myself. I did hire a team to help me with the formatting and with the cover. So I had a professional cover, professionally formatted. It did look good. I got it edited. I had an editor friend who was an actual professional editor, and they edited the book. So it was a quality product, and it sold. The royalties from that book were higher than my corporate salary at the time.
Wow. Whoa.
Yeah, that was very exciting. That's why I got into this business. I mean, now you'd have to be pretty naive to think you can live off of the royalties of one book for the rest of your life. But I had that moment when I was making so much in royalties, so I got so excited about it. And high risk, high reward, because I had a marketing background, plus I was willing to try out new things and was no longer so invested in what I was doing at the time. So I spent a lot of time marketing, promoting that book, and it paid off.
What was the most expensive thing about self-publishing?
The most expensive thing at the time. I mean, for sure, the team that I hired. I mean, that was probably my only expense because I did all the rest by myself. I did all the marketing by myself. I made one mistake, publishing, PR wise or marketing wise. I made a really big mistake because I hired this company that said they would do like an infomercial. And I went to the bank and got a loan to get it that I was then paying off for 7 years.
Oh my God.
And that did not work out. That was a terrible idea. But it's okay. I learned, I survived, and now we're able to, to produce these great results for our entrepreneurs. But coming back to what you were saying, Deborah, about the supply chain, issues and the wait times, even self-published books now, the delivery time is longer.
Yeah.
When people order these print-on-demand books, because can you explain how print-on-demand works and why those times are longer too?
Well, there are a few different services you can use to get your books printed on demand. I think the one that most folks are familiar with is probably using Amazon service. I mean, Amazon is just so ubiquitous in the publishing industry right now. So a lot of people use their KDP platform to produce their ebooks and then to also easily set up their paperbacks as well. And we've also used Amazon's print on demand services in the past as well. And their products, they're pretty good. They do print a nice product, but I have noticed that lately the production times have been more erratic in the last like 4 or 5 months, I would say. Whereas they used to be a little more quickly produced and shipped out, but right now most orders will say that there's at least a 10-day production time between when you place the order and when it's shipped. And that doesn't seem to matter depending on how like few or really how many books you get, honestly, because I've ordered between like five or 10 books to like 100 books, and it's been like the 10-day production delay on both. And then they'll ship them variable shipping times, but
Depending on where
they
you
have,
are, I'm guessing. Or
yeah,
just...
it's obviously depending on the location that you're delivering to.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much the supply chain is impacting the actual delivery dates, but I have noticed that sometimes Amazon has given a further out like deadline for delivery and then be able to deliver before that. So it's just an unpredictable like delivery chain right now.
Get it together, Amazon. That's like the one thing they have going for them is like fast, efficient.
Well, I mean, they're
delivery.
suffering like everybody else is with the like the manpower issues.
They can get their supply chain in order.
Well, we're lucky we have the ebooks that are always available in the audiobooks, so we're able to get those books out, and people are able to get sales, and if you're doing the book to promote your business, the ebook is perfect for that, to be bought on Amazon or downloaded on the website and to be consumed immediately. So there's this instant gratification.
We like to suggest this split release model where they're able to release their ebook as soon as the book is completed. And then just understand that for the paperback, they'll just be that 3 to 4 months while it goes through the production timeline and gets into bookstores. But you're right, Alinka, they can get the instant gratification, immediately start sharing their messages with their readers through the ebook. And then they can have like another bump and another release when they can have the paperback come out and do their in-person events.
Yeah, but the instant gratification is also for the readers. And
Yeah.
some of my digital marketing mastermind buddies have tested this, which lead generator works best, like when somebody opts in and leaves their email. And they've tested like live webinars or automated webinars or an event that's going to happen in the future in the book. And the one that converts best is the book because of the instant gratification. So you leave your email, you get it immediately, you can consume it right away. And it's also the highest density of knowledge when you read a book, because it's just really, thought out well. If I think about, the entrepreneurs we've worked with, like the co-founder of DHL International, he, basically lays out on the silver platter exactly what he did to grow DHL. You can read it all in a book, as opposed to following him for the last 50 years. You get it all in a book that you can read. That was, took a while to produce. A while, less than a year, not 10 years like some people take. But that's why books are so great. And I know I'm biased. We're biased. But
I don't think
those digital marketers, they tested this and it does convert really well.
I don't think I've ever said no to a free book, even if I had
Right?
to sign up for a mailing list to get it. So it works on me.
So 3 ways to get those books out. Yeah. Traditional publishing, self-publishing, and hybrid publishing. Who should do hybrid publishing? Who should do self-publishing? Who should do traditional publishing? What do you guys think?
Well, I guess it depends on what your goals are. So like, for example, if you're a fiction writer and you just really want to get your story out there into the world and into the hands of readers to enjoy, I think self-publishing can be a very rewarding path. Because that's the fewest barriers possible between yourself and your readership, right? Mm-hmm. But if you're in the nonfiction sector and you're trying to share your knowledge, but also leverage that further into something like speaking engagements or some kind of funnel to help you with like getting consulting gigs or even just to help your business flourish, I do think hybrid publishing is more useful because you get a consistent, professional, polished product in a limited amount of time. And then you can immediately start using that, like you said, Alinka, to convert people and get them on board. So that would be my answer.
It's also unapologetic. Like you have an idea and you go out and you do it. Like with self-publishing, you can do whatever you want. You don't have the distribution, or you need to hire your own team to do your editing and formatting and book cover, all those things that need to be done professionally. So you still need to hire out people. You just need to manage them too. So you also become a project manager. But with with hybrid, so what we do, it's I'm not saying it's immediately out there, but it's out there really quickly. Whereas with traditional publishing, somebody has to say yes, and then another somebody has to say yes, and then maybe they'll have you change half of the book, and then they'll have you change the cover. And if you're writing about a timely topic and the book comes out 2 years from now, it's no longer so timely. So there's that too. And if you're an entrepreneur, you probably want things get done now.
I was going to say, like, you need a lot of free time if you want to self-publish, like to dedicate to it, and you need to dedicate and keep yourself moving forward, even no matter how much else you have in your hands. So
you have to be your own project manager.
Yeah. So I think that's really important when making a decision about that, because not like our system is, you do 15 interviews and then that gets turned into a book. So it's like 15 hours of your time. And most of our authors really enjoy it because they're just talking to us. So most people like talking. So, yeah.
conversational. They get to talk about themselves and their business and really drill down into what they've learned and what they want to share. And they don't have to do it staring at a blank page. They get to do it talking to a person.
Right.
And I
And there's
think
a lot
that's
of value in that because, you can dig in deeper. So, because you can record to your phone. Like I do that for, if I have like interview requests or something, I don't write it. I record it to my phone, and then the team takes care of actually writing it. And so, I use my team internally. But if it's a long book, then like Grace, like you've interviewed a lot of people. Can you give us an example of like just something that an entrepreneur was saying that you had no idea what they were saying and you had to have clarifying questions so that the reader could understand what that was about? Like, does anything come to mind?
Oh, that's a really good question. All the time, because our authors are like such experts that so often I find I'm thrown into this world. Like, for instance, we recently did a book about trade finance, which is just incredibly dense. And so everything about that was kind of about researching it and trying to understand it through first principles, which in turn really helps the authors to clarify because they have to really understand. Because I'll be throwing questions at them like, what does that mean? And okay, but then what does that mean? It's the 5 whys in Japan, Kensenken or something, I think they call it, where you keep going to the root, and that's one of the many interview techniques that like our project managers learn. Yeah, so all the time. But I also, what I love is the opposite. Like sometimes I'll ask a question and they won't have thought about it before, and they'll suddenly be like, that's a really good question. I probably should know that. Like I was asking one of our CEOs who's growing his business. He just got this huge investment in Silicon Valley. And I was like, like, is there an order to, like, he was telling me about his early team, and I was like, do you need to hire like your COO first and then your finance officer, or what's the order? And he was like, that's a really good question. I've never thought about it. I'm gonna think about it and let you know. And like that's kind of really rewarding too. So yeah, I think both is really exciting.
Yeah, the 5 whys is Kaizen. I studied it back in the corporate
Kaizen.
world. Yeah, so that's the beauty of it, because you could write a whole book and then you give it to your first reader after it's published, and after the first 2 pages, they're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And they're not gonna read the whole thing that you spend months or years writing just because you could not get into that reader mindset. And when somebody's interviewing you, they are the reader, they are your reader. Like if you ask the 5 whys, the book becomes deeper too. You're not shallow just on the surface. You're actually really allowing your reader to get into your brain and your way of thinking. So it's a much more valuable book at the end.
Yeah, the reader is definitely, their experience is richer, even if we don't necessarily put that information in the book, just because the writer will have that much knowledge. Definitely. And it reminds me of, I read this study before, and what they did was there's a bunch of pottery classes, and they told half the class that they had to produce the highest quality pot. And then they told, these guys know that I've really gotten into pottery lately, sorry. There's going to be a lot of pottery analogies. And half the class were told to just produce as many pots as possible. And what they found is every time the half that was told to produce as many pots as possible actually made the highest quality ones. And I think that's why coming to a hybrid publisher, I know I'm biased, is really great, because you really have that knowledge of the team and our process that becomes just so much bigger than one person's contribution. Like we've had people who worked with ghostwriters and found that really a struggle, because like it's a very serial process where we'll be doing a bunch of stuff in parallel. There'll always be someone on the team you can ask a question to. And Linka is very kind with her time. I'm always asking her questions. So yeah.
Yeah, and we got 500 entrepreneurs a voice to share with the world, and almost 200 we can say on the USA Today Wall Street Journal bestseller list. So there's a lot
Doing
of
something right.
Yeah, there's a lot of knowledge here, and yes, processes that work.
Yeah.
All right, ladies, shall we wrap it up here? I hope you guys listening now know how you can get your book published, and make the decision and get it out there, because there are readers whose lives are going to change when your book is out.
Exactly.
Thank you for listening. This has been the Leaders Get Published podcast, brought to you by Leaders Press. Don't miss another episode, and subscribe today at leaderspress.com/subscribe. And if you'd like to discover which type of book you should write, go to leaderspress.com/reveal.